Welcome this morning to our community, to your community, a place of the tried and true, a place of opportunities for growth and for the new and different.
Well, good morning and welcome to our virtual Unitarian congregation of Westchester and our online worship service. The times are uncertain. Sometimes the audio over a wireless connection can be a little uncertain too, but what is certain is that we are together in spirit even when we can't be together physically. I'm Reverend Dan Schatz. I'm the minister. This is my home study. You're also seeing other people's homes. Today in particular, our service features one of our members, Chris Hyson, who just led our call to worship. Chris has reflections on earthworms, which seems appropriate for this time of year and for this Sunday before Earth Day. I especially want to welcome any visitors to our online service this morning. We hope that we'll at some point have the chance to get to know you in person. In the meantime, we hope that we can get to know you over this kind of forum. You can say hello in the comments. You can go to ucwc.org and send us an email if you would like to get more information about our congregation or if you'd like to be in touch directly. And we also hope that you will join us for our online social hour. This is still new to us. This is only the second week that we've done this. There is a link and password to a Zoom social hour that went out in connections. We will also put them in the comments for the service towards the end and on the screen at the end of the service. Unitarian Universalism holds that great good comes from wide diversity. So whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your heritage, and from wherever your beliefs spring, we are pleased that you are here. Let us walk a while together. As a reminder, please do check connections and check our online calendar for announcements, for information on how to access all of the various online events. In particular, I want to highlight for those who are newer, this afternoon and next Sunday at 2 p.m., we'll have our Path to Membership class. If you are interested and don't yet have information on how to log in, please send an email to me, minister@ucwc.org, pretty much right away, and I will get you what you need. I will make sure to check my email between the service and our class this afternoon. And if you do have the information, all you need to do is show up in the Zoom meeting. It's great to know that you're coming, but you are absolutely, absolutely welcome to just decide, you know what, I'm going to do this today. I also want to briefly mention finances. There's much that is making us hopeful, but we are also aware that there is a lot of uncertainty with rentals and with fundraisers for next year. And to address that, some of our members came up with the idea of donating stimulus checks that aren't needed to our congregation and to our Share the Plate recipients this year. So we'll have the option of donating entirely to the congregation, entirely to all of our Share the Plate recipients from this year, or split 50-50 between those. This is a way that we can help our congregation and we can pay it forward into the wider community at the same time. So I hope that those who are able will consider that. I hope that those who are in financial need will remember to come and reach out to me, because we also have funds to help members who are in need, and you don't need to be shy about asking. Now I will turn things over to our president, Matt Zensi, for a quick stewardship update.
Okay, thanks, Reverend Dan. I hope everybody can see the thermometer behind us. I just want to thank everybody for the amazing strength and confidence and commitment you're showing in our Unitarian Congregation of Westchester community here, especially in these uncertain times. It is just gratifying and amazing how much people are coming together despite the economic difficulties and the turmoil in the entire world to support the operation we want to be able to provide you going forward in the coming year. This week we ticked up another 3% toward our goal. We have 112 pledges in, and half of you have taken the leap that we were hoping to achieve, that we were hoping that you would, and in the circumstances, that's an amazing response. What we're trying to accomplish is to fund the entire baseline operation of the congregation through pledges, so that these uncertainties about fundraisers and other sources of income are not as significant or as problematic as they might be given these uncertain times. So as we fill this thermometer up, we're getting closer and closer to being able to do that. And then that way, the uncertainty about the other funding sources becomes more manageable. So thank you all for what you've done so far. There's a few more of you that we're hoping to hear from. And if you come through, we will be ever closer to being able to have a very firm baseline for moving forward in the coming year, regardless of the circumstances. So thank you for all the commitment you've made so far. And let's add that up just a little bit further, and we'll go on from there. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Matt. I thank you, and as always, our leaping frog thanks you. Wouldn't it be an amazing thing to actually see that thermometer read all the way up to the top? That would be an amazing experience to have, and I hope that we can get there. We're very close to there. I also want to remind you, for those who are considering doing the Pay It Forward program to share stimulus checks, you can give to that via check, which is ideal, but you can also give to that via the web or the app. But I am told to pass on to you that you can't do that through the text option, and we'll talk about that later. We enter into worship with the lighting of our chalice. We light our chalice today in celebration of the earth and the miracle of life embodied even in the simplest of creatures. May we honor the miracle with our living. And I invite you to sing wherever you are, and wonderful old song, wonderful hymn that seems appropriate for a simple creature of earthworms, the old Shaker tune, "'Tis a gift to be simple."
'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be be our delight, till by turning, turning we come round right. Turning, turning we come round right.
We are so fortunate to have musicians like Miriam and Jason to enliven our services online. It is such a gift to all of us. I invite you, wherever you are, to join in our unison affirmation that we gather aspiring to be a thriving, caring, and welcoming community that supports each person's spiritual journey, embraces diversity, challenges us to live responsibly, and is a catalyst for a just and compassionate world. Well, every month in our congregation, we share our offering with a different cause or organization in the community. And this month, we have made a change from our original plan so that we could offer some extra support to an organization which is stepping up in a very real way and scrambling to do so to help the most vulnerable among us. It is not easy to help the homeless during an epidemic, but Safe Harbor is finding ways, and they need our help. I will talk to you about how you can give both to our congregation and Safe Harbor in a moment. First, I'm very pleased to welcome the director of Safe Harbor, Judy Jeffords-Tomitz, to say a few words about what they are doing right now. Judy.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you inviting me to come in. As he said, yes, we are stepping up for that most vulnerable population. For those of you who don't know, Safe Harbor is a homeless shelter located in the borough of Westchester. We service single men and single women. We're the only shelter in Chester County for single women. And I have a master's in public health. And before we even started getting cases in Chester County, I kept asking, what are we going to do? Because our building is set up such that our residents are in a dormitory setting. So that's not conducive for social distancing. And about 3 weeks ago, we moved all of our residents to a hotel in Exton to help us manage that social distancing aspect. You have to remember that many of our individuals come to us with mental health problems. Hygiene is already an issue with them. So trying to get them to understand about hand washing, face covering, etc., can be challenging. So we're at this hotel, but that's all that is being provided is space. We have staff there 24/7. We bring all the food in. We're still trying to do our case management from a remote location for the most part. Some of my staff are have medical issues, so they can't come in to the facility. I have had one part-time staff person test positive. So that was interesting, trying to quarantine people who had come into contact with that individual. So it's been a challenge for us, but we're doing what we can do to help that population. I am running back and forth between the shelter and the hotel, and every day I have people knocking on the door. They've just been released from prison. Even though there's eviction stays in progress, people are still having to leave areas. So it's an ongoing situation, and I fear that it's just going to get worse as the economic downturn continues. In addition, we do provide a community lunch 6 days a week. Obviously, we had to stop having people come in and providing that meal, but we are still giving food out to the food insecure of our area. We're doing a bag lunch every day, and if we have prepared meals that they can take home with them, we're offering them also. And we've seen a pretty big uptick in that population. And again, I fear that in the future, our service is just going to be under more strain, while our financial resources have been cut, just as Pastor Ben was talking about. Everybody is suffering. We realized that our major fundraiser, our 25th anniversary gala, was set for April 25th. We had to cancel that. but we're working with a great group of volunteers helping provide food and my staff. So I really am very thankful for everyone that has reached out to us. And I so appreciate the opportunity and just let you know what we're doing to try to help this during this crisis. The homeless are struggling enough, but and it really exacerbates the situation. The most vulnerable are hit the hardest, the fastest. So again, thank you so much for inviting me to come in and let you know what Safe Harbor's doing.
Thank you so much, Judy. I can't imagine, actually, I can imagine how busy you are right now. And to take time on your Sunday morning to honor us with your presence is something we truly, truly appreciate. Thank you. This is a Share the Plate Sunday without a plate. Last month, members were very generous in sending checks to support both the congregation and La Comunidad Hispana. Whether you donate today by a check or on the web or by text or by the Give Plus app, I hope you will be as generous this month as you were last month. It could not be a more worthwhile cause. As Jason plays, we will, with deep gratitude, receive our Share the Plate offering.
Thank you, Jason. Very lovely. Very lovely. Well, good morning again. I'm Chris Heisen, and as many of you know, I do a lot of digging in my garden. So I get to see earthworms frequently, and worms are really, really good for the garden. Just by living there and just living, doing what they do, they aerate and fertilize the soil. But as much as I love worms, I have to admit they're pretty weird. Besides being animals, there's not a lot that we have in common. I live above the ground, they live below. My heart pumps blood through my body. There are 5 hearts handle that job. I move by putting one foot in front of the other. They move by bracing against the soil with their tiny hair-like setae and accordioning their bodies. I breathe through my nose and mouth. I hear through my ears. I sense light through my eyes. Earthworms do all those things through their skin. If you look at a map of the animal kingdom, we're about as far apart as you can get. Humans are chordates, along with every vertebrate and even sea squirts, whatever they are, I don't know. Worms are annelids in a group of 22,000 species of worms and leeches. Very different. Last summer, I dug up a particularly large earthworm, and I watched it for 7 or 8 minutes while it found its way back underground. I got to thinking, and I did a little bit of research to help with that thinking, and I learned this. Most earthworms, no surprise here, spend most of their lives underground, with just 3 exceptions. Number 1, they head to the surface to get food. Those delicious decaying leaves don't magically burrow underground to the worms. Number 2, danger can lead worms to the surface. Besides being unearthed against their will by a hungry robin or by Chris Heisen's shovel, they will also surface when their comfort or safety is threatened. A heavy rain floods their burrows and they head to the surface so they won't drown. They find themselves unexpectedly in overly acidic soil, they'll surface and go search for an area that's more neutral. The third reason that earthworms go to the surface is for relationships with other worms. This is risky business, but it's hard to meet anybody underground. So earthworms don't head to the surface on a whim. It takes hunger, serious discomfort, or the promise of a potential relationship to go topside, and all of these carry risks with them. I originally crafted this service back in the fall, and I was going to gloss over number 1 on my list and just skip to the exciting stuff. I was going to gloss over the food issue. I figured that people in the United States don't generally take a significant risk to get food. Whether we head to the grocery store, the farmer's market, or the food pantry to get the food, it's not a terribly risky undertaking. Simple, done, piece of cake. But having gone grocery shopping a few times in the last month, I can say that now we do have a lot more in common with earthworms. The act of leaving our homes to get food has new risks associated with it. In addition to the possibility of contracting the coronavirus, there's the risk of then bringing that virus elsewhere. All potential illness aside, there's still the risk of my time. Old-fashioned oatmeal, Barilla brand pasta, and Bisquick are in short supply. Yet I'm still taking the time and being rarely successful in efforts to find these foods. Like a worm surfacing to find a rotting maple leaf, but instead being met with an acidic oak leaf. I have to settle for grits instead of oatmeal, store brand pasta, and some other pancake mix. That's hardly a life-risking issue, but there are difficulties that we didn't have last month. Anyway, it's a risk to go out there and get food, but it's also a risk to stay home in our burrow every day. We weigh those risks every day and guide our actions with this weight. I welcome you now at home to join in for hymn number 104, When Israel Was in Egypt's Land.
When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people shade by day, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land, tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. We need not always weep and moan, let my people go. And when these slavery chains fall on, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land, tell old Pharaoh to let my people go.
Our first reading today is from the book of Exodus. The Israelites journeyed from Ramses to Succoth with about 600,000 men on foot, in addition to women and children. And a mixed multitude also went with them, along with great droves of livestock, both flocks and herds. Since their dough had no leaven, the people baked what they had, brought out of Egypt into unleavened loaves. For when they had been driven out of Egypt, they could not delay and had not prepared any provisions for themselves. The duration of the Israelites' stay in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of the 430 years, to the very day, all the Lord's divisions went out of the land of Egypt. Our next reading is called Pablo's Story, and it's a summary of one young man's exodus, supported by Asylum Access Mexico. Industrious from the start, Pablo began styling hair at the age of 14 and opened his own barber shop in Honduras when he was 22. His customers confided in him, and he would listen to them without judgment or criticism. But after a falling out with one of his customers, who was also a powerful gang member, Pablo's life took a turn for the worse. He and his partner took a bus to Guatemala and then to the Mexican border, where they crossed the river by boat and rode a van to the nearest town, Palenque. When they arrived, they were out of cash. Along the way, they had been extorted by almost everyone they encountered. To make matters worse, they were stopped by immigration officers, detained, and deported back to Honduras. Their escape had been in vain. As soon as they returned to Honduras, fearing for her son's safety, Pablo's mother collected more money and sent them back on their way. This time, they were better prepared. With tips collected from other migrants during their first journey, they managed to avoid the immigration officers and reach one of Palenque's migrant shelters and approach Asylum Access Mexico for help in applying for asylum. Pablo and his partner now run a successful barbershop in Mexico, thanks to both the support of their neighbors and to the nonprofit's legal support. When the Jews fled Egypt in Exodus, they didn't do it lightly. But after 430 years living as slaves, it was definitely time to go. They left behind the known, though. They left the city of Ramses in the fertile northern delta of Egypt, where there was water and food. And they set off into the unknown desert, with one of the most powerful pharaohs in Egyptian history in pursuit. But when things are bad enough, when whatever relative comforts we have are threatened, people can and do step out into the unknown. When Pablo left behind a successful hairstyling business, friends, and family in Honduras, and fled with his partner to Mexico, he didn't know that everything would be all right. In fact, on the first try, it wasn't. But he knew that his comfort and his safety had eroded to the point where fleeing into the unknown was a calculated risk. When our comfort or when our safety is sufficiently threatened, just like earthworms, humans will generally make a change. Before you say, wait a minute, Chris, but why do some people stay in dangerous situations? Let's put this in context. The comfort and danger threshold is different for different people. Looking at the Old Testament, is it possible that some of the Jews remained in Egypt while Moses led the others out? Where there was safety, relative safety, where there was bread, where there was water? In Pablo's story, can we assume that there are Hondurans in more danger than Pablo and his partner, who still remain in the dangerous situations that exist around them because the risk of the unknown is too great for them? Each person's decision to change, to head out into the unknown and take that risk, is influenced by their relative comfort and the relative threats to their comfort. I'm reminded of two of my friends who, a few years ago, were both struggling with remarkably similar workplace stresses. One left that job a couple of years ago. The other is still in the same position today. The one who stayed has weighed the comforts of a steady paycheck, paid time off, health coverage, and the other knowns against the risk of change and has opted to remain. The other weighed those same factors and gave 2 weeks' notice. We generally have some point at which there's too much water in our earthworm burrow and we need to surface, where we need to choose the danger of the unknown. It's at that point when the comfort of the known no longer holds us back. What's that point, though? That's a question with an answer that's unique to each of us.
Two and two are four, four and four are eight. That's all you have on your business like mind. Two and two are four, four and four are eight. How can you be so blind? Inchworm, measuring the marigolds. You and your arithmetic, you'll probably go far. Inchworm, measuring the marigolds. Seems to me you'd stop and see how beautiful they are. Inchworm, measuring the marigolds. You and your arithmetic, you'll probably go far. Inchworm, measuring the marigolds. Seems to me you'd stop and see how beautiful they are.
Beautiful, Kathy. Giving Danny Kaye a run for his money. Our next reading is actually an online post on Reddit from a young woman who names herself U/Terrified of Love. And she titles her post, Going into My First Relationship, Why Am I Terrified? I'm a 19-year-old girl in college, and I've started dating someone for the first time. Things are pretty casual right now and going well. But for some reason, I'm absolutely terrified of going forward. I've never been much of a risk taker in my life. In fact, I'm always cautious as hell, usually to a fault. I don't really know what I'm afraid of. I just have this nagging fear in the back of my mind that keeps me from wanting to take the relationship further. This is just something everyone learns to get over in their first relationship. I don't really know what to think of all this. A helpful netizen named Zorba T. Hutt replies to Why Am I Terrified with, because relationships are freaking terrifying. Zorba T. Hutt says, you're putting your heart on the line. You're investing a lot of time and effort into a human being who, frankly, you don't know all that well and may have a freezer full of human livers in the basement. And worst of all, it's probably not worth it. It will probably end badly. It will probably end with heartbreak and tears and pain. But the times it doesn't end that way makes all the rest of them worth it. You're terrified because you're a sane human being. And you're doing it anyway for the exact same reason. I hope it goes well. There's an inherent risk in seeking any new relationship, particularly a romantic one. Is that person out there for me? If they're out there and I go looking, will I find them? If I find them, here's a risk. Will they accept me? If a relationship develops, will it work in the long term? There are enough risks in seeking, obtaining, and maintaining a relationship that it's no wonder that lots of people avoid it. But there can also be wonderful rewards. I don't know how 19-year-old U/Terrified of Love's first relationship worked out, or if it ever worked out, but I do know a story about a 17-year-old's first date. It was 1994. I was a junior in high school, and I had never been on a date. I was busy with school and with marching band. I went fishing several times a week, even in the winter. Any downtime, and there was plenty of it, was easily filled with Nintendo and computer games. Our computer even had a modem, although I didn't see the point. I could easily ride my bike across town in the amount of time it took to dial in. Nobody would ever use that new internet thing. Anyway, it didn't bother me that I had never been on a date. In fact, I liked how simple and comfortable things were. Saw no need to upset the apple cart, particularly with Super Mario 3 in play. Super Mario 3, by the way, is still in play. My parents, however, were bothered that I had never been on a date. As they saw it, I had grown a little too comfortable with the routines of school, band, fishing, and computer games. They recognized that college was on the horizon, with independent adulthood at some point thereafter, and they thought, rightfully so, that I was limiting my social options by defaulting to computer games during free time. So they did something bold. My dad sat me down and said, I paraphrase, Chris, it's important that you get out and do things. The junior prom is next month, and you need to go to it. You can go on a date with a girl or a guy, or you can go with some friends, or you can go by yourself, but you need to attend. Your mother and I will pay for your tuxedo, your ticket, your date's ticket if you choose to have a date, and you will have the car for the night. For a lot of 17-year-olds, this would be a dream come true, but I was completely terrified, and it gets worse. You spend too much time glued to the computer and Nintendo, and there's a world of people and experiences out there. If you don't go to the junior prom in May, there will be no Nintendo or computer games until graduation. Remember, this is my junior year. Graduation is still over a year away, and I really do like playing computer games. So I have only one logical reply to my dad. I guess I'll do it. Thanks to a tip from a friend of mine, I learned that Heather was interested in me. So naturally, I called her up right away to set a date. No, wait, just she was nice. She was in the band, so I knew her. I knew from my tipster she was interested, but I still delayed calling her for 2 weeks and deliberately avoided her in school. When I finally did call her, and I know this is cliched, she said, hello, and I hung up. Fortunately, my efforts to avoid Heather in school eventually failed. I bumped into her and asked her if she had a date for the prom. She said she'd love to go with me. My tipster was right, thank goodness. The story from there becomes a little bit easier. We had a great time, dinner, dancing. You can call standing awkwardly together and swaying to be dancing. There was a post-party party, and even a follow-up dinner and movie date. There wasn't any relationship romantically beyond this, but my parents were so obviously and completely right in their decision to make the junior prom mandatory. I really thank them for that. In my senior year, they didn't need to force me to go to the homecoming dance in the fall or a couple of proms in the spring. They didn't need to force me to borrow the car to go and hang out with friends. Had a lovely time. I want to point out, though, that these social gatherings were, and still are, risks. They're outside of my natural comfort zone. I engage in these activities. I step out of my comfort zone of computer games and working in my own backyard in the garden, digging up worms. I step out of that comfort zone because I learned it could be good for me. I admit I still do that with some trepidation. Even today, when there's a party, a dinner, or another gathering with new faces, I need to push back a little bit against my instinct to stay in my earthworm burrow, to get up there to the surface and do something socially active. Experience has taught me that I end up pretty happy with the relationships that are formed and that deepen from these departures, from these sojourns from my burrow. So I go there, like a worm leaving the safety of my burrow and crawling up to the surface to see who I can meet. And to paraphrase Zorba T. Hutt on relationships, those times when they work out make all the stress worth it.
Well, thank you, Chris. As we move into the time in our service when we will lift up, without names while we're online, the joys and sorrows among us, I invite you all to sing, wherever you are, "There is a Love Holding Me."
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding me. I rest in this love.
In our congregation, we share joys and sorrows by lighting candles in our service and by reading the cards that have been written. For this service, members have emailed what is on their hearts, and there is much on the hearts of our members this week. And so we light a candle for one who mourns the death of a neighbor from COVID-19. For one whose mother recently received a diagnosis of uterine cancer. For a member whose neighbor passed away this week, leaving behind the memory of a woman with a feisty spirit. For a friend whose stepfather has just died from COVID-19. for a member's friend who passed away suddenly in his sleep, leaving 2 young sons behind. For one who celebrates the birth of a baby to a beloved friend. And as always, we light one candle for the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken. And we sing, "There is a love holding us."
There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding us. We rest in this love.
I was listening to NPR the other day. Harry Gross was interviewing Marielle Heller, director of the Mr. Rogers movie, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. In preparation for a filming, she was hardly surprised to learn that Fred Rogers was exceptionally good at long, thoughtful pauses. When he received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the TV Critics Association, he came to the podium and opened with, "Let's pause for 10 seconds and remember those people who loved us into being who we are." Apparently, Mr. Rogers had planned 60 seconds of silence, but for both the live event and the television broadcast, that was deemed by the hosts to be way too uncomfortable. That sort of contemplative pause could send the earthworms accordioning right out of their burrows in confusion. So Mr. Rogers opted to curtail the moment of silence. I think that we at UCWC, however, can find comfort in extended silence. So please join me now for a minute of silent meditation. I welcome you now, again, to join at home for our final hymn, number 6, "Just as Long as I Have Breath."
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I
Whether you remain now in the comfort of your burrow or you venture into the risk of the unknown, go in peace.
Thank you. And we will be joining together in our Zoom social hour, so please join us for that. And thank you especially Chris and Kathy and Miriam and Judy and Matthew and Jason and Eric for all of the technical support today and every week. Go in peace.